Parshas Lech Lecha, Tavshin Ayin Gimel. I really should start this year every week this way, but this week I have a special appreciation notice. I would like to let the people, there are people, Baruch Hashem, who call every week, and they tell me that they listen to the shiur, they watch the shiur, that they say it over at the Shabbos table. So I just, every once in a while, I like to express my Akar Satayv. It's a good feeling, and that's the reason we have the shiur. The people should be able to get something good, a good lesson on the Parsha, and to say it over to the family, say it over to your friends, say it over in Shul, and I thank you very much. The Pasuk says in this week's Parsha, Vayelech Avram went, Kasher Diber Hashem, Vayelech Itoy Loit. Avram went, as Hashem told him to, and Loit went along with him. We see in this week's Parsha, the Torah tells us a large part of the episode of Avram and Lot. What happened with Avram and Lot? That Lot went with Avram and he stuck with him like glue at some times, until the point came that Avram said, "He parid no me'olai." This is not going to work out anymore. We need to separate. We need to each go our own separate way. And the Torah in detail tells us how Avram went with Lot, and Avram Avinu stayed with Lot, and then it broke up. So what are the lessons to be learned from this? As we always say, the Torah doesn't just tell us, especially in Bereshis, Torah doesn't just tell us stories. The Torah obviously wants to teach us a lesson from this episode of Avram Avinu and Lot. The Nesivos Shalom says, and he answers to what lesson we learned from this. Nesivos Shalom says, let's look first at the beginning of the Parsha, and from there we could derive the lessons that we have to learn from here. Vayomer Hashem el Avram, Lech Lecha me'artzecha mimoladetecha mibeis avicha el aretz asher areka. Beginning of the Parsha. Leave your land, leave the place where you were born, leave your father's home, el aretz asher areka. Go to the land, Eretz Yisrael, go to where I will show you. Rashi says right here, when the Torah says, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is the first time HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to Avram Avinu. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avram Avinu, Lech Lecha, it was Lahanoscha L'toivascha, for your own good and your own benefit, or your own benefit and your own good, in that order. So the Mefarshim all ask over here, we know that Avram Avinu was the greatest Oved Hashem Me'ahava that we know. So why would HaKadosh Baruch Hu have to promise Avram Avinu La'nascha L'toivascha? Why would he have to promise Avram Avinu a reward? Right? We know that Avram Avinu didn't need to be promised a reward. He would have served HaKadosh Baruch Hu Me'ahava anyway. And also, what greater Hana and Toiva could there be for Avram Avinu, Zok in Nesivos Shalom? What greater Hana and Toiva could there be than to do the Ratzon Hashem? Avram Avinu knew he's going to do this. It's the greatest Hana that he could have, to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's brought down in Svarim, like we said before, that again, since this is the first time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking to Avram Avinu, there's a very important lesson to be learned out of it. And we learn out of here the Avodas Hashem. We learn out of here the derech of Avodas Hashem, of how to be Oved Hashem and how to be Davuk Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Avram Avinu, if you want to be Oved Hashem and you want to be Davuk Hashem, the first thing you have to do is Lech Lecha me'artzecha. You need to separate yourself me'artzecha. Separate yourself from Gashmias. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Avram Avinu. You want to be Oved Hashem? You want to be close to Hashem? Lech Lecha me'artzecha. Take yourself out of the artsias of what's going on here. Separate yourself from the Gashmias. And you know what? Separate yourself also from Imoladetecha, Mibeis Avicha. And these are things that people have natural inclinations of Ava. Separate yourself from those things too. Take all those things of Midas Ahava and channel them into Avas Hashem. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying. Separate yourself from all the other Ava. Separate yourself from all the other things, from all the other Gashmias. Channel it into Ha'aretz Asher Areka. I'm going to show you the derech to get El Ha'aretz Asher Areka, to get to Ruchnias, to get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Invest everything you have in Avos Hashem. And really, Zok Nesivos Shalom, that a person has to know that they cannot exist together. Gashmias and Ruchnias really cannot exist together. You cannot be connected to Ruchnias and Olam Hazeh at the same time. Because really and essentially, they contradict each other. The Ruchnias and the Gashmias together don't work. They contradict each other and they can't exist at the same time. So Hashem said to Avram Avinu, Lech Lecha, from Me'artzecha, go away from the Gashmias. Why? So you could have Lahanoscha L'Toivoscha. You want to reach that Madrega and Ava. You want to reach, that's the Hanoscha and Toivoscha of Avram Avinu. You want to reach that, your biggest Hana of being close to Hashem, you have to leave the Gashmias. And this is a lesson, L'Doiros. This is a lesson for all of us, the Nesivos Shalom says. He brings down from the Chovos HaLevavos, the Chovos HaLevavos says, in Shar Cheshbon HaNefesh, Perek Gimel, famous Chovos HaLevavos, the Chovos HaLevavos says that just like it is impossible for fire and water to exist together, the Lashon of Chovos HaLevavos, fire and water cannot exist together, so too the Hanois of Olam Hazeh and the Tainug of Ruchnias cannot exist together. Like fire and water. Someone, a person, anybody who is Shakua in Hanois Olam Hazeh, if you're a Reingezat, if you're Shakua in Hanois Olam Hazeh, you can't connect to Ruchnias. That's the way it is. When could you have Ruchnias? When you do Lech Lecha. When you Lech Lecha Me'artzecha. When you leave and you're ready to leave some of the Gashmias behind, when you're ready to leave it behind, then Lahanoscha L'Toivoscha. Then you're going to be able to have and reach your Madrega in Avodas Hashem. So the Parsha continues. The Parsha says, after that, Vayelech Avram, like we said at the beginning of the Shiur, Vayelech Avram kasher dibrei elav Hashem. Avram went. And what did Avram do? We know now. Avram went with this shita that HaKadosh Baruch Hu advised. Kasher dibrei elav Hashem. That he separated himself from the pursuit of Gashmias. The Pasuk says, though, Vayelech itoi Loit. Loit saw, this is a great idea. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you really, really know what you're talking about. Fantastic. It's a great idea. And the Nesivos Shalom says, Vayelech itoi doesn't just mean that they went along. Vayelech itoi means, Loit and Avram both had this midah of ahava. The Pasuk even says, Dr. Nesivos Shalom, Ki anoshim achim anachnu. We're brothers. And we know that they were not brothers. Loit was Avram's nephew. So when we said Ki anoshim achim anachnu means that they were very close. They both had this midah of ahava. But what was the difference? The midah of Hava, the Ava of Loit, was in ganzen shut. It was totally full of Gashmias. That was the midah of Ava of Loit. And we see in the Parsha a little further, we see the Ava of Loit, where it got him. When the Pasuk speaks about the Maisa with Loit and his daughter, that was Ava. That was Gashmias. That was the Olam Hazeh kind of Ava, the Ava that we see in the street. That's Ava. That's Ava. That's no shayches to what Ava is supposed to be. An Ava of Ruchnias, an Ava of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We see where that got Loit. That got Loit into a lot of trouble. It's brought from the Zohar. The Zohar says that there are different levels of Yetzer Hara. Zohar talks about it. He says one Yetzer Hara, we can't get into all of them now, but one Yetzer Hara, he says the Yetzer Hara of Lavan. And maybe we'll get into that when we get up to the Parshas later on. He says another Yetzer Hara is the Yetzer Hara of Esav. And then there's the Yetzer Hara of Loit. What's the Yetzer Hara of Loit, Dr. Zohar? The Yetzer Hara of Loit is what we see in this week's Parsha. What does Loit try to do? Loit tries to mix some bad into the good things and good midas. You have a good midah, you have something good going. The Yetzer Hara of Loit says, no, don't make it perfect. You have to mix something bad in there. And Loit used his, even with the bad way that Loit was using his midas, he wanted to do good with it. He wanted to have a mix. Loit wanted to go along with Avram Avinu. And we know, Dr. Nesivos Shalom, you cannot have it both ways. It doesn't work that way. We know as soon as Lot saw the Ori Hakikar Kikula Mashke, as soon as Lot saw the epitome, as soon as Lot saw all the Gashmias, what did Lot do? He turned off the path of Avram Avinu. He went to the Gashmias. He went to the good, fat land where he could put down his roots and plant things. That's where Lot went. It's then that Avram Avinu saw what Lot was doing with this Midas Ahava, what Lot was doing with this member of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we asked at the beginning, why do we go through this whole parsha? Because we have to understand what Avram Avinu said over here. Avram Avinu said over here, he parid no me'alai. This cannot work out. You want to have a Midas Ahava, you want to have this, the Yetzer Hara, Lot, like the Zohar said, you want to mix good and bad together. You don't want it to be totally good. He parid no me'alai. Avraham Avinu said, listen, please, we need to separate. We need to each go our own separate ways. It cannot work. Avodas Hashem, a person wants to be an Oved Hashem, it can't be mixed. And the Nesivos Shalom says, as much as people want to feel that they could indulge in every pursuit, in every of luxury, in every gashmias, people feel, yeah, I won't be affected by it. It's not meant for me. I have $10 million. I'll only show $1 million of it. I'll only use part of it. I'll only use part of it to be kind of, in quote, olam hazeh, to have more gashmis, to have more things like that. You're going to pursue luxury. As many excuses as you really give, the Nesivos Shalom says it doesn't work. It can't mix. Every bit of gashmis that you run after, every bit of gashmis that you do, separates you from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You cannot be an Oved Hashem. You cannot be Dovuk B'Hashem if you're running after Gashmias. And I was just thinking, it doesn't say this in the Nesivos Shalom, but it's interesting to see that as soon as the Pasuk says, He parid no me'alai, it says right there in the Pasuk that Avram Avinu said, let's separate right away, right after that in the Torah. The Torah says to Avram Avinu, now, go out, take a look, Safoina, V'negba, that's when Avram Avinu was able to get all the brachas. You see that? The Torah says that right there. As soon as he said, no, this is a Yetzer Hara. Convince yourself that you could do and be full of Gashmias and run after Gashmias, and then you're somehow going to get schar for Ruchnias. You're somehow going to get schar for being close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Can't work out. And that's the lesson of this week's Parsha. That's one of the lessons that we learn from the Maisa and the whole, like we say, it's not a story, but the whole Maisa in the Torah of Lot and Avram Avinu. That's the lesson we have to take out of here. That doesn't mix. It doesn't mix. Avram Avinu told Lot, as much as I love you, as much as you're my nephew, ki anashim achim, we're as close as brothers, but it can't be that way. We have to separate. Let's internalize this lesson. Let's learn from this and understand that in order to be a Dovuk Hashem, in order to be an Oved Hashem, it has to be pure. You can't fool yourself and run after Gashmias too.